Good morning. Happy Monday. I hope everybody had a great weekend. This is Midwife Monday with the Santa Clarita Birth Center. I think, what I'm thinking is, so you guys, I hike all the time. And I think after every one of these little Midwife Mondays, I'm going to maybe add a link to the bottom of the hike that I did this weekend, or the hikes I did over the weekend. So not only will you get little tidbits of information from your local midwife, but you'll also get some local hiking trails. I think that might be an awesome idea because we did two really cool trails this weekend. And they weren't very far from home, and it felt like we got out of town, and it was just so awesome, good for the soul. So maybe I'll add those links at the bottom of this little podcast-y thing that we do. Okay, so we're going to talk about gynecological care with a midwife, your annual exam. Many people think that they just have to go to their local obstetrician or their local gynecologist in order to get those annual exams done. And many don't know that you can see your local midwife. And we think seeing a midwife is really, really super awesome. Not just because we are midwives, but because we know that nobody likes to go into the doctor's office and be put on that sterile exam table with that white paper that's super scratchy, and they say, okay, undress from the waist down, the doctor will be in a minute, and then you're sitting there with like your little paper sheet on with your butt on the table, and it's cold, and they come in, and you know that speculum is going to be coming out any minute, and your feet are going to have to go up in those foot pedals or stirrups any minute. But when you do that exam with your local midwife, we block out, here at the Santa Clarita Birth Center anyway, we block out 60 minutes for you to do that annual exam. Now, there are some protocol changes in the obstetrical world in terms of how often you actually need to have the PAP component done, which is once every 3 years if you've not had an abnormal. Once every 3 to 5 years, actually, if you've never had an abnormal and if you're with the same partner. So just know that you don't actually have to, every single year, go in and have the actual PAP test done. But in general, when you're going in for an annual exam, why it's really nice is because we take so much time with you, especially for our young people. Those people that are ages maybe 18 to 25, their mothers maybe are wanting them to come in and have their first exam, and it's really anxiety provoking. And when you're in that sterile doctor's office, and there's not a whole lot of time for them to talk to you about how are you doing, how are you feeling, how active are you in your, how sexually active are you? What's your nutrition like? Do you understand what we're going to be doing, right? So we do all of that before we actually sit you up on the table and do an exam. And so having a lot of conversation before anybody touches your body is really, really very important, especially if it's one of your very first times ever having a gynecological exam. But as midwives, we can do those exams. We can do your blood work. We can do the PAP component. We can discuss options of birth control options. When people talk about birth control, everybody assumes we're talking about hormonal birth control pills. But what we talk about when we say birth control is we're talking about family planning in general, child spacing, preventing pregnancy, trying to get pregnant. As licensed midwives in California, we cannot prescribe hormonal birth control pills, nor do we put in IUDs here at the Santa Clarita Birth Center, but we can make references or referrals to those that can write prescriptions or put in IUDs. But we do talk about other ways of child spacing, child preventing, and things like that. So having your first exam with a midwife, or your subsequent exams after you've had babies with midwives, again, it goes back to the fact that we give you lots of time before we touch your body. We make sure you're calm, that you're relaxed, and we will never do anything to your body without your permission. And it's also really important, actually, how we talk about this exam table and sort of taking the fear out of this lovely exam table that I'm sitting on right now. And maybe maybe getting rid of these. I don't know if you can see them from your perspective, but we have these little, what we like to call foot pedals or foot holders. The term that you might hear in a doctor's office is that they're called stirrups, which is an awful name for something because, yeah, you put stirrups on horses, you know. We don't really want to call them stirrups. So we call them foot pedals, foot holders. And we actually try not to even use these. We'd rather not use these because of what it does emotionally to somebody when they are in this cold table and they put their feet up on these cold stirrups. You're really in a very vulnerable position and you don't have a lot of control. And that can provoke a lot of anxiety for some people. So we talk about the exam and why we do it and how we do it, and we introduce you to the different instruments that we use to kind of allay any of the fears that you might have that are associated with that speculum or any kind of instrument. Because it's really important that as people that are, if we're getting our bodies touched, it's really important from my perspective as a midwife that you understand why I'm doing what I'm doing, that you're consenting to what I'm doing, that you're informed with all this information, and that we are in agreement with how your body is going to be touched. Just knowing that alleviates so much anxiety and makes the experience far more tolerable. So we do recommend that if you're going in for an annual visit, your gynecological visit, that you do seek out a midwife and that has the amount of time that they can spend with you, that you can do that 45 minutes to an hour. Because it takes about 30 minutes before we even sit you on this table to get you kind of relaxed. And then understanding the results of your test. There's a lot of confusion. Somebody just came into the office and said, oh my gosh, my 22-year-old family member just found out that, you know, HPV was identified, and they told her that she can never have a baby. Okay. No. Okay. There's a lot of information that probably, I don't know the results of the testing that was done, but I said, well, let me see the results of the test. Let's sit down and talk about what we're looking at. Never has HPV, in my experience, caused someone, have they ever been told that they cannot have a baby. That is just not true if it's just HPV. And what are the protocols, right? How do we address abnormal PAPs? We talk about those things with you when they happen. We sit down, we open up the evidence, we share with you, and we share with you all the current evidence. So if you have an abnormal PAP that came back positive for HPV, you know, there is a protocol. And so I open up my PAP app and I talk about it. And it says, you know, if you have a positive a positive PAP, right? You came up ascus positive with HPV positive. The current recommendation is that you just repeat that cytology, that PAP, in 12 months. That's what it says. And if 12 months after that it's negative, then you're going to go and have another annual exam. If it's 2 negatives, then you can go back to every 3 years. If it's positive, then we might want to proceed to something called a colposcopy. So that's a lot of technical information, but it's certainly information that you deserve to have when you get an abnormal result with any of the PAP cytology. And as midwives, we allot that time for you, and we are really impassioned about giving you all of the information so we can jointly make a decision that's right for you without the fear. We certainly don't want anything to scare you. We don't want to eliminate information, but we don't want to scare you. So we encourage you to come to the Santa Clarita Birth Center or to your local midwife and get your annual exams. It's really, really worth it, especially if it's if you have younger people that have never had their exams before. You really want to introduce them to the midwifery model of care because it is very compassionate. We have a lot of time, and we want to educate and encourage you as you go through your life. So we care for women from their very first, we care for people from their very first gynecological exam all the way through menopause. So your midwives do more than just catch babies. We're here for your health in general, from the time you decide to go for your first gyno exam to the very end. So that's just a little information on gyno exams. We used to think you had to have a PAP once a year. We know that that is not true anymore. It depends on your history. If you have any questions about what is appropriate for you or your family members, you can always call us here at the Santa Clarita Birth Center. You can make an appointment for your annual exam. We allot 60 minutes for everyone. Many insurance companies will reimburse for the visit. We do not take insurance here at the Birth Center for those exams, but we will discuss that with you if you give us a call. And many insurance companies, like I said, will reimburse for the visit. And it is worth it. I promise you. It is worth decreasing your anxiety and getting some nutrition counseling. We can do blood work, talk about your supplements, and make sure that you're on the right track for health. And that's what we really care about. We care that you are on the right track for health. And our mission here at the Santa Clarita Birth Center is to help you stay healthy or get on the road to health, and help give you the information that you need in order to go forward without fear and without being afraid to go in, because you do need your exams, you do need your screenings, and we're here for that. So any questions or concerns, please call the Santa Clarita Birth Center or your local midwife in whatever area you're in. You can, of course, find us here on Facebook. You can follow us on Instagram. These Midwife Mondays are put up on iTunes, so you can listen to our podcast. So please do those things. And for those of you that need to get outside and explore your local areas. This is such a beautiful time to get out and hike. The fall is just, the weather is awesome. It's nice and cool. And this weekend we did Henninger Flats, which is up in the San Bernardinos off the 210 out of Eaton Canyon. And it was like an 8.5 mile up and back up to this amazing campsite. And there were all these conifers, all these different types of pine trees. It was like leaving and going up to Sequoia. It was amazing. And then the other hike we did was out at Devil's Punch Bowl, and we did Buckhart Saddle is what we did. And again, that was out of Palmdale, about 45 minutes from Santa Clarita. And that was like an 8 mile out and back, again, through just like amazing pine trees and rock and desert, and super cool. So go check out your local hikes and check out your local midwife. Have a great day, everybody. Bye.